In this episode, you're gonna get to watch a lot of progress being made with the Turbo Drift Miata. The drivetrain is gonna get going into the car. I'm also gonna be mounting some stuff in the engine bay, and we're gonna unbox some new stuff, mainly covering parts that's needed for the new turbo setup. But it's also something that's, as of filming this video, is not yet released, but it might be while you're watching it. After that, we're gonna make the Miata look more like a car again and getting it down on the ground for the first time in a couple of months. The video is going to be ending with me bringing it up to Auto-Gruppen so that they can have it for manufacturing the exhaust manifold. And in order to make this video not unbearably long to watch, let's just get started.
If there's one thing I'm happy I've learned before this project, it's to organize and label whatever you're taking out of the car, because it saves you a lot of time and hassle when it's time to put it back together.
So I do have some new bolts, because I know that one of these has been stretched before. Let's see, it's this one. So you can see the old one has been stretched quite a bit. You can especially see it on the threads. Doesn't line up at all. Let's throw this old one away. We'll be running with the new. When I ordered all of this stuff, I knew that I had one that was stretched, but I didn't know if it was a long or a short one. So I got one of each, and I'm actually happy because I decided to check all the threads, and it's one that's starting to be stretched as well. Someone's been at these with power tools, I suppose, not the torque wrench. But yeah, luckily we've got one short and one long extra, so we'll be running without stretch bolts.
Thanks to labeling everything and knowing what tools I'm going to use, I can just lay everything out where I need it, and it makes the process of assembling everything much easier.
Alright, let's prepare the gearbox.
And if you're thinking that this is a really clean gearbox, you'd be correct in assuming that I used 2 cans of brake clean. Probably overkill, but I want to be sure that everything is clean before it goes onto the car again. This is the standard I want to keep, even though this gearbox might be closing in on its end of life.
Let's use this grease that was applied with the clutch. The new release bearing.
And don't mind the excessive amount of grease on the snout of the input shaft, or whatever you'd call it. I made sure that this was not an issue before the gearbox went into the car. While I'm no master mechanic, I have actually been through the process of getting a gearbox down and back up in a Miata before, especially in this car. And it was because I had to do a clutch change last year. This time around it was actually a bit more of a hassle. The gearbox didn't really want to line up with the splines and the pilot bearing, so I had to jiggle it around and try a couple of times to get it to actually line up, and then getting it all the way in without destroying anything in the clutch. And if you're here to watch how to mount the gearbox in Miata, you should know that there are 8 bolts, they're different lengths, and one actually has a nut on the starter side.
So let's torque them down. Torque wrench for the bell housing bolts is 65 to I think 80 something. So we're gonna set it to 70 for these ones, because that's the way you do it.
For the sake of editing this video, I googled and got the same results, but I know that I've checked this before in the actual Mazda Miata workshop manual.
And let's see if we can get to the top ones as well.
These are a bit trickier. I find it easier if you haven't connected all the wires and cables yet.
So with the huge amount of extensions, I'm gonna take the range a bit up towards the upper limit, because we're losing so much. It's not all the way up there.
And if you think I'm skeptic and don't believe this common sense, I'll put my engineering degree behind it. The starter really is quite straightforward. 3 bolts, 1 with a nut, and just make sure that it lines up straight.
And then there's 2 threaded on the top of the starter.
Same with the slave cylinder, 2 bolts, and making sure that it sits in the clutch fork as it should.
Now I am going to check that the slave is working properly, but before I do that I actually am going to put the diff up together with the top shaft and the drive shaft. Kardanaxel and drivaxlar if you're Swedish. So yeah, I guess for me it just feels easier on my own to test this with rotating and clutching and putting it into gears and seeing if it holds up or not. It's a new clutch and all of this, so I want to make sure that the play is all right together with the release bearing and the slave cylinder and all of that. So let's keep going. Now, one thing you need to master if you're going to be working on your own car by yourself is the one leg jack lift, as you can see. It's really useful.
The two M8 or M6 studs that are in the subframe for this safety bracket or whatever you want to call it really has seen better days, but it's a problem for the future me to renovate this. And it's probably going to bite me in the ass now that I'm mentioning it, but yeah, we'll see.
Let's torque these down.
Next up is the PPF or power plant frame, and I have to say it's a kind of weird solution.
Now, there is actually a specific order in which you should mount these bolts and hand tighten them and then torque them down. I remember checking this out because I did it wrong. The first time I did it, I didn't realize that it was a specific order. You're supposed to start with the 3 on the gearbox and then the 2 for the differential. And let me tell you that I did actually have some strange vibrations that I could feel in the rear end of the car. Maybe you won't notice it because I also have a welded diff, but yeah, after I redid that during this summer, or last summer actually, I had a much smoother ride. So yeah, starting with the gearbox.
And when you see all these movements when it's not bolted down, I guess it has something to do with the reason why it's a very specific order. And on the top of the PPF, especially for the diff, there are these weird insert nuts. And I guess they can actually bite you in the ass when you're trying to dismantle this if you don't know that they're there. And this is the order then that I've interpreted from the workshop manual, that you should just slightly tighten them first and then torque it down.
And these ones are just about 100 newton-meters, I think, as well.
From my perspective, the order which you torque it shouldn't be as important because it's already seated where it should be, but I'm still following the steps that they're mentioning.
Kör karn. Kör karlen. Ute på Hisingen. Det är fan sjukt.
Han ska ut till Gröndal och en sån track day.
Nej, kommer du på tisdag eller?
Ja, fram till strax innan 4, sen behöver jag lämna.
Ja.
After the prop shaft was mounted, it's time for the drive shafts. And I believe this is a common solution for the ends of them to have a C-clip on this push-in drive shaft. But I also believe that the C-clips on these ones are getting a bit worn because it was a little bit too easy to get them in. Especially on the driver's side, as you'll see here.
Oh yeah, I didn't torque down the center bolts for the drive shafts, but that's because something's coming.
So for the shifter, I've got a complete new set of bushings. I ordered this because I wanted to get rid of all the play I had before, and let me tell you that it did a really big difference in the shifter feel when I tried it out afterwards. I also filled up the selector with some oil, but I'm not gonna show you filling the gearbox or the differential with oil because that's just boring. But anyhow, I got new boots because the lower one was just missing, that you see me installing here, and then the upper boot was torn at some part of it. But yeah, short shifter installed. Let's move on. So first off, I'm making sure that the slave cylinder is doing its thing and the release spring doesn't have any weird noises. I can also shift easily, so let's try the clutch engagement.
Now this is actually a front tire because those are all I have here, but for the purpose of what we're doing, it's going to be just fine. That's first gear clutch up and clutch down. We have a really good engagement as well. I just tried it, so I'm happy. Seems like it's working.
Finally, it's time to move on to the engine bay. And we're actually going to start with something easy, such as the radiator and some hoses for this. And I don't know why I seem to have forgotten to clean the outside of the radiator. As you can see on the fins here, it's a bit of rusty water. But that doesn't really matter because it's coming down again before it's time to fill the system. And you might notice that I'm not really putting any of the clamps on because of the same reason, that it's all gonna get dismounted again before it's time to fill the systems. Next up is trying to get some sort of order on all the wires. You might also notice that Morten is here in the background doing some work on his engine.
Det är något som inte är litet på den här jävla Miata.
You're also in for a special treat.
Kan vara så att det kommer.
Sorry if you're watching to out you like this, but it was just too good to not include. Anyways, after mounting some radiator hoses and also some vacuum lines for the brake booster and the throttle cable, as you can see here, things are just progressing in the engine bay. So time to pull out some of the freshly painted stuff, starting with the mounts for the strut bar. And remember to support your wheels when you're loosening the strut tower if you don't want to look like a fool. These have been off the car just because of the fact that they are freshly painted. They used to be some sort of bluish dark color and I really didn't like it, so I'm using the same satin black as on the valve cover that I painted last year. And I'm putting it back because it's going to be a really big restriction when it comes to turbo placement. Next up is the intercooler piping and the intercooler itself. So the intercooler piping has kept up well, but the rest of this stuff is also freshly painted during the winter.
Strax har det.
I guess this is really something that's able to change or be repositioned if it's needed, especially on the hot side, but we'll see if we can use it.
Full av olja.
No good.
So you've been hearing Morten in the background on the phone and disassembling his engine, and he asked for some help to remove the pistons safely. And we're also looking at the main caps that has become an issue with this engine block. This is something that you might not want to see,
Sen kollar du det lagret där så
but when you're running close to 900 wheel horsepower, you gotta be prepared for shit to happen. Moving on, the power steering cooler, I'll just place it where it's supposed to be. It actually requires my oil cooler mounting bracket to be able to be mounted as it should be. And just as for the coolant hoses, I'm not using or tightening any of the clamps for the intercooler piping. Regardless of that, why don't you just have a look at this beautiful blow-off valve from Nuke Performance. But I did get ahead of myself making it in this order. As you'll see, the anti-roll bars really making it struggle to put this on. So I did actually do it the other way around off camera. I have raised the car both in the front and the rear during the winter, and it actually turns out that when checking the clearance, might have been a bit too much in the front. The adjustable end link is actually touching the coilover. In order to fix this, I lowered the car just slightly again, but we'll do a proper ride height and wheel alignment before the season starts.
The engine bay is starting to be filled up with stuff I want here for transportation and for them being able to build the exhaust manifold. But I want to also mount the injectors and the fuel rail. And I actually was over at Nuke Performance the other day and I picked up a new set of injectors along with some other new interesting stuff they're gonna release. So let's head over to the workbench and unpack that box.
As you've probably put together, I'm building this Miata more serious than you'd need to, and I actually have a new M-Tron ETC4 CAN module, which will allow me to run individual EGTs, but the new parts for the turbo setup doesn't stop there. Nuke Performance has designed an EMAP canister, which will allow you to measure the back pressure in your exhaust manifold without burning a sensor, thanks to this piece and their hardwire kit. With the freshly built engine, we can get some target values on first startup and dyno, but with this, in combination with the new EGTs, we can monitor the health even in the future. Really nice products, and the finish is immaculate. The new injectors are Bosch Motorsport ones, they're 1200cc, and I got a flow match set from Nuke Performance. I think that it's a good business idea for them to have this in their product listing so that you can get everything you want in one purchase. So here we have a Nuke Performance fuel rail. I really like the style and the finish of it. Interestingly enough, this is not a Miata fuel rail from the get-go. It actually is a fuel rail that is meant to be for a Mini Cooper. But they do share the same dimensions for the injectors, so I was able to get a hold of one. I had to make my own brackets, as you can see, to mount it to the intake. But that was really no biggie, because I really wanted to run one that was completing the look and giving the engine bay quite a lift compared to the OEM rail, if you ask me. One more thing is they are actually running the safety clips here, as you'll see when we mount this together. If you ask me, that's a really nice feature if anything were to happen while driving. So let's mount this together and then put it onto the car. When editing this, I'm realizing that I should make a disclaimer here. The rail for this Mini Cooper fits the 1.6 liter Miata intake. I'm not sure that it fits the 1.8, so don't quote me on that. Also, as you see, it's really tight with the intake, so you need to be removing your preheating for the intake or whatever it is. I believe this is kind of common to remove if you're not running in cold climates, but yeah, just a disclaimer.
This is the state I think I can get it to. It's now in my mind ready to be transported up to Auto-Gruppen so that they can build the exhaust manifold. As you might notice, a lot of this stuff is not permanently mounted. It's not even mounted with clamps. The reason is that it's probably gonna be disassembled again, maybe even when they're building the exhaust manifold. So let's just take the easy route, okay? No fluids are in the car. It's not gonna be started yet, so ready for transportation. What's left is probably mounting the hood, the fenders and the front bumper. So the Miata hood is actually aluminium. It weighs like nothing. And I am running with the hood tilted upward, like so, which means we need to tilt this one, or lift this mounting point. It's basically getting more hot air out of the engine bay. And I'm not going to tighten them fully just yet, because I want to be able to mount the fenders and make sure I can wiggle it to get the gap right.
And the gaps aren't really limited to only the fenders and the hood, it also affects the headlight covers and the front bumper. So it's kind of important that everything fits, as you can imagine. And you can also see that last time I put it up on the jack stands, I forgot that I will be needing to get to the mounting holes in the bottom. And I'm also not mounting it with all of the screws, just because I want to be able to wiggle it around and remove the fenders a couple of times if needed.
Alright, let's check the gapping and the lines. It looks like it's gonna line up just fine. I might have to adjust the backside here a little bit.
This gap on the passenger side was a little bit too tight for my comfort, and hence the gap on the driver's side was a little bit too wide. So I adjusted it slightly, and then I tightened everything down on both sides.
Let's try the front bumper on, and maybe even the side skirts.
This way of storing your car body parts really is genius. And it's so simple. You just put two shelf supports up onto the wall. It's out of the way and really high up, so I'm never really concerned with it during the building season.
We're gonna have to cut it up to fit the bash bar.
So really, I'm cutting it in smaller sections first, and then I realized that, well, I need to cut out quite a big chunk to get this to fit. But it's not really a worry. And also, as you might notice, the body kit, especially the front bumper, has taken a lot of hits. So I have a plan to refresh this before the season really starts. But for now, it fits. So I'm finishing up with mounting the bumper so that it will stay on the car. But also, if you remember the last episode, I was talking about if I should be running the toe strap in the middle or on the side as I have been before, and I actually decided to move it back to the side. But what you'll see is me not noticing that the socket is running away from me, and it took me some time to find out where it actually went. And to be honest, getting my confusion on camera, I kinda looked like a fool. But enough of this. It's time to move on with the video.
So here in Sweden, the roads during winter might be a bit unpredictable, especially around Gothenburg, where the weather is always around 0 degrees Celsius. When it's snowing, raining, and there's salt on the road in the meantime, cars get kind of dirty. And that's why I wanted to cover up both the engine bay and the exterior of the car to save it as much as possible. The car is gonna see all the spray from every other vehicle, and it's always gonna be just behind one. We're going to transport the car tomorrow. So today I'm spending the day with packing all of the stuff that's needed for them to make the exhaust manifold, specifically the turbo and the wastegate, since I have it here. But I do want to take this moment to really appreciate that this is a checkpoint in the building process. Seeing the car back onto the ground and looking somewhat like a car, it feels like the progress is really being visible now. The next thing you're gonna see is the car being loaded onto the trailer, and maybe throw in a couple of clips of the journey itself.
And the funny moment, my dad realizing that a welded diff can make your tires make some really weird noises. Anyhow, this trailer that we're gonna load the car onto is a new addition as of summer of 2025. And this was the first time that we tried using the winch to get a car up on it. It worked really smoothly. Nothing really to complain except the low car issues. And yes, I do have wooden blocks laying around for this purpose, but after racing the car, I figured it wouldn't be as big of an issue, but I'll have to revisit this. And clips of loading a trailer might not be the funniest, but I wanted to include this because it really seemed like my dad and I had some good flow without even communicating on what we're gonna do. Alright, the car is loaded onto the trailer. Unfortunately, I have studded winter tires on the Volvo, so regulations or laws prohibit me to run it with the combination here in Sweden. But kindly enough, my father decided to support me by lending his pickup truck. It's minus 2 degrees Celsius here, but with the moisture it feels like minus 20. We're freezing our hands off, so let's hop into the car and get going up to Mellerud. The trip from the shop up to Auto-Gruppen really takes about 2 hours with the trailer speeds, but it's always fun to arrive here and seeing what projects they are doing. I didn't film anything in the shop because there are some secret projects going on and some customer cars that I'm not sure they want to show off. But the trip up went really smoothly, and you can see that there is some spray on the front of the car, so I'm really happy that I covered it up as well as I could. Unloading it really is the straightforward process as it can be. Not really much to enjoy. So the part of their shop where they're working on the cars is full at the moment, but they're gonna roll this into their shop tomorrow. I'm looking forward to how it will turn out, and I can't wait to get back up there and get everything home. And don't leave just yet. If you've stuck around for this long, thank you, but keep watching just a tiny bit more.
So, the car is up at Auto-Gruppen and it's in their hands to build a custom exhaust manifold. I was going to end this video here, but I have one more spontaneous thing to include in the video. And it's actually that I wanted to introduce one of my biggest supporters and sponsors on this drifting journey, and that's my dad. When I first set up with the journey to convert the Miata with turbo and ethanol to get some more power, it was really scary for me. And one of the biggest investments I would have done up until that point in my life. And it was really with your comfort and encouragement that I actually decided to go for it. I don't think I would have done it unless you told me to. I remember it being something in the style of like, if you really want something, you have to go for it. So I'm immensely grateful for that support and that encouragement. And I don't know, I think I have my hobby and interest in cars to thank for seeing you as growing up with your trucks and everything.
Yes, it's a nice journey to see you have done, because when you started to go with me in my trucks when you were 2 years old, little kid, but you were so interested in all kind of vehicles, engines and all. And then you grew up and more, and now you ended in drifting. That is so far away from my kind of engine interest.
Yeah. So you have the nickname Snail Freight if you translate it into English. Basically because you're a truck driver and you are calm and collected, specifically even more than most might think.
I'm known as a very slow man. I drive slow and straight on, and now you drive fast and wide.
Yeah.
So it's the opposite.
Very
but
much.
It's nice to see your journey. I'm so proud of you, and it's so nice to see your journey. So it's very fun for me to become a part of it. So,
I'm happy to hear that, and I also have to mention that your first experience in a drift car was actually in the Miata this September,
yes,
in the season ending. And while the Miata is no Drift Masters spec competition drifting car, it's still a drifting car that you can drive quite spirited. What was your experience of riding along?
It was so cool. I felt so safe, absolutely cool, but it was fun.
Yeah.
Far out, as I say in America.
There you have it. It's far out.
Far out. Yes, it was far out.
And that's the intention of this entire journey, to make sure that it's far out, it's cool. And I would like to thank you for watching this video. I don't know, hit that like button if you want to, and if you haven't already, subscribe, because there's a lot more content coming. And the next video I have planned, I think you're gonna want to watch it. Well, as always, take care and I'll see you in the next video.